Told you, back already. Right, tensions between the US and Iran are escalating, with 6 key developments now fueling fears of a wider war, and I'll outline them all now. So, first of all, President Trump has ordered a major show of force in the Middle East. The US has deployed the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford, alongside additional warships and aircraft, positioning the military for sustained air and naval operations rather than limited strikes. Secondly, US officials have briefed that any conflict would likely be a massive weeks-long campaign, not short, targeted attacks. Third, diplomatic talks have hit red lines, reportedly. Indirect negotiations in Geneva have stalled, with Vice President J.D. Vance on your screens now saying that Iran is refusing to acknowledge US demands on uranium enrichment and its missile program. Fourth, satellite imagery published this week shows Iran fortifying and repairing key nuclear and missile sites. Fifth, Iran is under growing internal pressure as well, of course. Sanctions, high inflation, economic instability, protests have all fueled unrest. Sixth, Iran has temporarily closed the Strait of Hormuz for live-fire military drills, the first announced closure since the 1980s. And just tonight as well, that now infamous Truth Social post President Trump wrote. Should Iran decide to make a deal, he said, it may be necessary for the US to use Diego Garcia and the airfield located in Fairford, that's RAF Fairford in England, in order to eradicate a potential attack by a highly unstable and dangerous regime, an attack that would potentially be made on the United Kingdom as well as other friendly countries. Freddie, are we days away, maybe a week or so away from an attack on Iran?
Well, you speak to people in Washington and they certainly think that we are. The pressure's building, the talks are going on in Geneva. It seems as if Trump made that promise to the protesters back in January that he would retaliate if the regime killed many of them, as they did, and perhaps he needs to now live up to that promise. But there's a thing we have to remember here is that many people might assume this would be exactly the same as what happened in Venezuela, but Iran is a completely different country. It's much more ethnically diverse. There's a much stronger state within a state, which is the Revolutionary Guard Corps, and it would be much harder for the US military to try and take out the supreme leader without leading to some broader civil strife. So I think that the stakes here are much higher, and what I find concerning right now is that there is no debate within Congress. There's no sense that we should be having a conversation both within America and also in the UK, because obviously they're going to be using our bases in Diego Garcia to launch the war, about whether we should be doing this or not.
Yeah, that's a great point about the UK. The head of MI5 came out some weeks ago saying they'd foiled 20 Iranian-linked terror plots in the UK. 3 small boat migrants, Iranians, have been arrested, allegedly accused on the way to blow up the Israeli embassy in Kensington. So there are, we know for a fact, Iran sleeper cells, terrorist sleeper cells in London, including one guy, by the way, the former Iranian minister, Matt, who backs the fatwa on Salman Rushdie. He wrote a book about it. Anyway, he was with the IRGC as well. This is an issue for the entire Western world, isn't it? Not just America.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, look, Iran is doubling down right now. The regime there is doubling down on protecting the regime, and they're not being logical, because the truth is, they're about to find out what the Trump doctrine is all about, and that is mess around and find out. And I think we could be days away from potential military action taking place here. Obviously we've seen President Trump move military hardware near Iran, and this does impact not just the United States. And look, Iran, if they choose to continue to work again to build up their nuclear capabilities, that'll be a mistake. Their ballistic capabilities are something that they need to push back on and stop. And look, President Trump's going to draw his line in the sand. He already has in many ways. And I think we're just days away to find out what happens next year.
Freddie, domestically, politically for President Trump, is there not a concern now or a need to focus on the midterms and maybe tell Americans about how their lives are going to get better and stop getting involved militarily with interventions elsewhere?
Well, I think lots of people in the White House would definitely say that. They keep trying to get President Trump onto these cost of living, affordability tours and rallies around the country, and he keeps getting sidetracked by foreign policy. I think Trump is fascinated by foreign policy because it's an easy way in which he can exert power without any restraints and checks and
Quite
balances.
sexy as well, isn't it? You know, the headlines.
Well, I mean, a war isn't very sexy. No, it's actually disgusting and horrible. So.
No, but I mean the sort of international posturing, grandstanding, international headlines.
Yeah, I mean, he has a massive ego, and of course it allows him to grandstand. You're right. But where is the debate? Where is the checks and balances? That's what we should be looking for in the next few days.
Yeah. Okay. With me now is former National Security Chief of Staff and CIA analyst Fred Fletz. Fred, great to see you. What's your take on this massive build-up with regards to Iran? I mean, maybe you can give us some context here. Is this the biggest military build-up we've seen in decades, as some people are saying?
I think so, probably since the second Iraq war. And I think an attack is probably imminent. I believe President Trump really does want a negotiated solution. But the most interesting comment on this today was made by an anonymous Trump official who said that the talks with Iran were like a hamburger stuffed with nothing. The Iranians are making a real mistake here. They're assuming that they can drag out these talks, offer nothing, thinking Trump will agree to endless talks. And look, that's what most Western leaders have been fooled into doing in the past. The Iranians are experts at drawing out negotiations, pretending that they want to agree to something, but I don't think Trump's going to stand for that. They've been given a limited amount of time to come to an agreement, and then I think there will be a military strike.
Okay, so then what does that look like? How does that manifest? You strike what? Are you taking out the regime? If you do, who takes over after? I mean, is it the exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi? I mean, what's the plan?
Well, I think the nuclear sites have been devastated. I don't think a lot more damage can be done to them. The missile sites are a problem. There's a large arsenal of medium-range missiles Israel's very concerned about. I think they will all be taken out. I think there will be attacks on facilities related to security forces to make it harder for them to crack down on the population. But in terms of regime change and knocking out the leaders of the country, I don't know what the administration has in mind. I agree with one of your colleagues. That's going to be very difficult because Iran is a very different country than Venezuela. Frankly, the security forces aren't as incompetent and as small as Venezuela's was. But I think there also will be a lot of covert operations to try to help the Iranian people, also to turn their internet back on.
Yeah, and we've seen actually in recent days some British influencers, social media influencers, I won't bother naming them again, but we did a piece on it the other night. They've been invited to Iran, I assume by the IRGC, saying, oh, everything's great, the Iranians are happy, look, I can walk around without a hijab on, and Iran is standing up to American imperialism. Is that the case, or is that the IRGC doing as we suspect and embarking on a propaganda tour?
Tens of thousands of Iranians have been killed since January because they were protesting for freedom and they were concerned about the bad economy. And look, whatever happens with a military strike against Iran, the regime has no answer to this. Their economy is in the tank. It's going to stay there. There is a slow-growing insurgency in this country, and I think the U.S. has to work with all of its allies to stand with it, to stand with the Iranian people, to throw this evil government out.
Fred, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Former National Security Council Chief of Staff and CIA analyst Fred Fleets. With me now a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies, Behnam Ben Taleblu. Behnam, great to see you. What's the answer here? Reza Pahlavi? I don't see the point. Look, I'm no military expert or geopolitical expert, but what is the point of striking Iran if you're not going to take out the regime there? That's what the Iranians, from what I can see, for the most part, want, right?
Great to be with you, Ben. Yes, that's what that highly nationalistic population wants, but perhaps more importantly for U.S. strategy, for Western strategy, that's what we need. There is no way to actually realize the goals of the Trump administration's national security strategy, which talks about peace, prosperity, and stability in the Middle East, if you leave the arsonists behind many of the fires across the Middle East still in place. And worse, from a strategic perspective, if the U.S. is looking like it backs down from enforcing its own red lines with respect to the Islamic Republic, there'll be a contagion effect from much more capable, more powerful, and even nuclear-armed adversaries that we face, which are Iran's partners, like the Chinese or the Russians, just like there was a contagion effect after Obama failed to enforce his red line on Syria in 2013, then Putin invaded Crimea in 2014.
What do other Middle Eastern states think of this escalating situation, Benham? Because I think we heard some sources last time, the likes of Saudi, Jordan, maybe Oman there as well, urging President Trump not to strike Iran because it would cause economic woes, destabilise the Middle East. Has that kind of stance changed from those nations?
Well, I think there's a kaleidoscope of Middle Eastern countries. Israel has been at least publicly relatively silent, but if I had to guess, they would oppose any kind of agreement that didn't go basically beyond dismantling and neutering the Islamic Republic security state, which puts them in the position to be ready for strikes. The question is, do they have the interceptors ready? Where is the missile math between Iran's long-range strike capabilities and the assets that the U.S. can bring into the theater to help defend Israel as well as other countries? When it comes to the Saudis, I think there's an inside game and an outside game, a public game and a private game. Publicly, I think that they might be a bit more dovish. Privately, I think a bit more hawkish. Then there's the other constellation of pro-American forces in the region, like the Qataris, who are a major non-NATO ally, but really do double dip. And I think those, plus the Omanis, are really the ones hedging here. They're the ones who feel the fear and the blowback and think that the Islamic Republic, even a weak one, is better to have than to pay for the cost of change and chaos. The analytical mistake these countries are making, however, is that they think stasis equals stability. And the past 4 decades with the Islamic Republic does not at all prove that theory.
I'm not sure if you've seen, Benham, as I just mentioned to our previous guest, these, not just British, but there's also the head of Palestine Action, US, was flown over to Iran as well for these sort of propaganda holidays, I describe them as, saying everything's great, the Iranians are happy, look, I don't have to wear a hijab. Have you seen those clips and those campaigns on social media, and what is that?
Most unfortunately, yes, it's an information campaign. You know, the government of the Islamic Republic is cognizant of the domestic debates and the fault lines, not just in America, but across the West. And they're actually pretty savvy actors on social media. They've long amplified fights within the Iranian opposition, for example. They've interfered in multiple elections in American, for example. They've even interfered in the Scottish referendum. So it's no doubt that they'd be looking to take social media influencers who already have an anti-American and anti-Western, anti-Israeli disposition and, you know, fly them over to the Islamic Republic, which is the most anti-American and anti-Israeli country in the heartland of the Middle East, and give them a platform to spew their invective, but also to support state policy, in which, by the way, that is the world's foremost state sponsor of terrorism. So these tactics by authoritarians we've seen before, but now they're being scaled up in the 21st century in the digital world via influencers, via social media, to get at the very heart of the American national debate.
Okay, great stuff. And yeah, of course, the UK, we're still waiting. We're behind the EU, we're behind America to prescribe the IRGC. I don't know what the hold-up is.
And Australia and Canada.
Yeah, we'll see what happens in the coming days.
Thank you.
Where, sorry, and Canada? Where else in Canada?
Australia and Canada have also prescribed the Guard Corps.
Oh, they have prescribed them. Okay, so it's just the UK lagging behind. Interesting. Wonder what's going on there.
UK
Benham, thanks
and
very
New
much.
Zealand.
Ben
Thank you.
Teleblu, the spokesperson for Foundation for Defence of Democracies.